The Earth is a dying rock and time is running out. You only have 10 years to plan your escape. How could we evacuate as many people as possible? The answer lies in our ability to communicate with each other, which has never been easier than it currently is. Social media has made the world smaller and more connected than ever before. With this technology, we can use our collective voices to help. We need to survive first before we can begin to move on. If the worst-case scenario were to happen, are there some places that would offer refuge? If Earth had only 10 years left, there is little hope for humanity. With a population of 7.8 billion, the Earth will not be able to sustain life without drastic changes in how humans live. A solution could be fusion power, but it would take decades to develop, and less than a decade to use up all of the fuel on Earth. Space technology is advancing rapidly, and we may not be far from living on another planet. Currently, space shuttles only transport 5 to 7 people at a time, and we would need over 1 billion of them to take care of the entire population. NASA has designed a spacecraft that would take the space agency closer to Mars. The design is quite complicated, and NASA knows that they cannot build it on their own. They need everyone to work together so that the plan will succeed. The idea of leaving Earth and settling on Mars was once a seemingly impossible goal. Today, we know the Earth will not last forever, and we know it can't sustain us for much longer. We need to plan for the future now, or risk being left behind. Yes, I imagine the selection process would be very strict. So if you wanted to be one of those survivors, you would have to find a way to stand out. And now that there are more chances for survivors to be chosen, you might want to know what will come next. It would be impractical to try and bring everyone with you when you relocate off Earth. Even if there is a single outbreak of disease, the end of humanity would be near. However, it is nearly impossible to bring everyone. There are many things that must be taken into account when determining who will make the journey, including how much space is available for each person on board the ship, where they are going to live for their new life. There is a lot of controversy surrounding the idea of whether or not humanity would be able to survive if only 98 people were left alive. Some estimates say that would be enough, but others argue that we'd need at least 14,000 people. Let's round this up and say that we'll aim for evacuating 15,000 people. But how would we choose them? This is a great question. As you can see, there are many different things that need to be considered when creating an evacuation plan. How would you choose the right people for this plan? It's tricky to predict exactly how many people will inhabit Earth in the future, but there are some things we can be certain of. For example, India could send 2,700 people to account for their 17.7% of the global population, while the US could send 600 to match its 4.25% of Earth's inhabitants. The idea of choosing people based solely on their skills and qualifications is a controversial one. It would perpetuate many of today's inequalities. There are many different opinions about the benefits and drawbacks of this hypothetical selection process. The Earth has lost approximately 1/3 of its culturally significant sites over the last century. With so many important cultures disappearing, it's more important than ever to find ways to preserve all of them. Now, let's get to the technical side of things. To carry 15,000 people to refuge in space, we would need an enormous ship or many smaller ones. While constructing one ship would be most efficient, there would be extra cost involved. For this reason, ships that could carry 3,000–5,000 people are more suitable. NASA has a long history of attempting to create innovative spacecraft. One of the most recent projects is the BEAM, Bigelow Expandable Activity Module. It's an inflatable habitat that can be sent into space with the goal of creating a new settlement on Mars. These inflatable habitats are not only great for providing needed refuge when space is in danger, but they are also perfect for when our homes are ravaged by natural disasters. They can be folded down and stowed away when they are not needed to await the next emergency situation. With the long-term goal of transitioning Mars into a sustainable, human-populated world, SpaceX could use any technological advancement to help facilitate the process. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in. It could help if we transferred the raw material to space before beginning construction. But that could take a while. Currently, SpaceX rockets can carry a maximum payload of 63,800 kilograms. The next huge challenge to overcome would be considering how many vital resources we would need to carry with us. We would need to build our space vessel to become self-sustaining. In order to do so, engineers will have to consider the size of the vessel, weight, and balance of materials inside. This introduction could be about the benefits of solar power. It would likely be about how easily accessible and free solar energy is, and how it is a much more sustainable option than other alternative sources of energy. In order to produce oxygen and water, grow food, process waste, and regulate the temperature and pressure on a large scale in space, while keeping the ship stocked with enough food to keep everyone alive, some major engineering tasks would need to be overcome. But first, we would need to start stocking a spaceship with enough food so that it could survive long-term. To survive the first 2 years, you alone would need up to 400 kilograms of food. And that food would need all the carbs, fats, proteins, and fiber that you'd need to stay healthy and energized. You would need 1,726 liters of water per person on board to supply everyone with enough food and water. This means you would need 15,000 liters of water total in order to feed 15,000 people for a week. That would be quite a lot of water. So our ship would use cutting-edge methods of recycling to make a renewable water system. But where would we go? First, we would establish a new space station that would be home to new and advanced technology and allow for more complex space exploration. We would then need to create and implement plans for an emergency landing on the Moon. By the time we realized we needed to evacuate, we had already planned for this contingency and had already built a station in orbit around it. Mars is the ultimate destination for humanity, which is why so many people dream of visiting it. If we could figure out how to get all the people down onto Mars, it would be incredible. But there are some serious obstacles in the process. For one thing, Mars has no atmosphere, so people would need to wear space suits. Then there's the issue of building a rocket that could carry everyone at once. We can already see the potential for sending humans to Mars in the next 10 years, but what will it take to colonize other planets? Clearly, it's going to be a lengthy and costly process. That said, we've got the drive, technology, and financing in place.